The alien war camp was a place of steel and silence. Tall black walls circled the compound, and banners bearing the crest of the Virilan Dominion flapped in the cold wind. Every guard who walked the perimeter wore the same silver armor, their faces hidden behind curved masks. Inside one of the largest tents, Princess Zyra stood before her council. She was tall, proud, and beautiful in a way that could cut as sharply as any blade. Obsidian-toned skin, golden eyes that glimmered like molten metal, and long braids wrapped in gold thread. Her voice was calm, but carried the weight of command. The humans will not take this ground. We will crush them before they reach our border. One of her generals bowed low. Princess, their scouts are fast. We must be careful. Zyra's golden gaze hardened. Careful is for those who fear. I do not fear humans, and I will never bow to one. Her words drew murmurs of agreement from her warriors. That night the humans came. It began with distant flashes of light, artillery strikes in the hills. The air grew hot, the ground shuddering with each impact. Zyra stood outside her tent, watching the night sky burn. Form the line, she commanded. Warriors rushed to the barricades, but the attack was fast, brutal. Explosions tore through the camp, scattering soldiers and sending fires roaring through the tents. Zyra fought like a storm, her twin blades cutting down any human who came close. But there were too many, and soon the Dominion's forces were retreating into the darkness. In the chaos, she didn't see the collapsing tower until it was too late. A shockwave from a nearby blast sent her to her knees. The metal structure groaned, then began to fall, straight toward her. She tried to roll clear, but her left leg caught under a fallen support beam. Pain shot through her, and for the first time in years, fear touched her. The shadow of the tower loomed over her, and then he appeared. A human soldier. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing battered combat armor stained with dirt and ash. His helmet visor was cracked, revealing sharp blue eyes beneath. Without a word, he grabbed the beam pinning her leg and lifted with all his strength. Zyra glared at him, even as the weight was pulled off. "Why, are you helping me?" she demanded, through clenched teeth. "Because you're about to die," he said simply, "and I don't like watching anyone die if I can stop it." Before she could answer, he pulled her to her feet and shoved her forward. "Move!" The tower crashed to the ground behind them, sending a shockwave of dust and heat through the air. They ran through the burning camp, dodging falling debris and stray blaster fire. Zyra's pride screamed at her to push him away, but her injured leg slowed her. Without his arm under her shoulder, she wouldn't have made it 10 steps. At the edge of the camp, he led her behind a collapsed wall. The gunfire was fading now, replaced by the crackle of flames and the groans of the wounded. She pulled away from him, breathing hard. "I did not ask for your help, human." He met her glare with a steady look. "Yeah, well, I didn't ask for your permission either." Her golden eyes narrowed. "Do you know who I am?" "Someone who almost got flattened by a tower," he said. "Name's Captain Elias Cross." "I am Princess Zyra of the Virilan Dominion," she said coldly. "You are my enemy." "Funny," Elias replied. "I thought I was your savior about 30 seconds ago." They stared at each other in the flickering firelight, the distant sound of battle still echoing in the hills. Finally, Zyra straightened, wincing at the pain in her leg. "You will not get thanks from me, human." Elias gave a half smile. "Good, thing I wasn't expecting any." She turned to leave, but he caught her arm, not roughly but firmly. "If you go back into that camp right now, you won't make it. Whoever's leading that attack isn't stopping until every soldier in there is dead." Her jaw tightened. "Then I will die with them." "Or," Elias said, "you live long enough to win later." The wind carried the smell of smoke and ash between them. For the first time, Zyra didn't have an answer ready. Somewhere beyond the hills, more explosions lit the night sky. Elias adjusted his grip on his rifle. "You can hate me all you want tomorrow, but right now you need to come with me." She looked at him for a long moment, her pride warring with reason. Finally, she gave the smallest of nods. They moved into the darkness together, the burning camp fading behind them. Two enemies walking side by side, bound by a choice neither had wanted to make. The night swallowed them as they moved away from the burning camp. Smoke trailed across the hills, the glow of the fires casting a faint light behind them. The ground was uneven, littered with jagged rocks and patches of wild grass. Zira limped but refused to lean on Elias again. Every step sent a sharp pain up her leg, yet she kept her chin high, her golden eyes fixed ahead. "You're slowing down," Elias said without looking back. "I do not slow," she replied, her voice sharp. He glanced over his shoulder. "You're bleeding through the bandage I wrapped." "It is nothing." "It's something if it kills you," he muttered. They reached a ridge overlooking a valley. Far below, a thin river snaked between clusters of dark trees. The moonlight gave the water a silver sheen. Elias knelt, scanning the terrain with a small binocular device. "We'll make camp by the river. It's low ground, but it's got cover." "I will not hide," Zira said. "Fine," Elias replied, "but I will. And you're stuck with me." Her lips tightened, but she said nothing. They descended toward the river, their footsteps muffled by the soft earth. The air was cooler here, the sound of rushing water mingling with the distant rumble of artillery far to the east. By the riverbank, Elias dropped his pack. He pulled out a thermal tarp and set it on the ground, then took out a small portable heater. Zira stood apart, her gaze fixed on the water. "You humans and your gadgets, always relying on tools instead of strength." Elias didn't look up. "Tools keep you alive. Strength alone gets you killed faster." She turned to face him, her golden eyes gleaming in the moonlight. "You think I need you to survive?" "I know you needed me 10 minutes before that tower fell," he said evenly. Her jaw clenched, but she didn't argue. They ate in silence. Ration bars for him, a pouch of concentrated protein gel for her. The only light came from the faint glow of the heater and the moon overhead. After a while, Elias spoke. "Why were you on the front line? Royalty usually stays far from the fight." "I lead from the front," she said simply. "A true leader bleeds with her soldiers." He studied her for a moment. "And you were ready to die with them?" "Yes." Her voice was steady, but there was a flicker in her eyes. Something that wasn't pride. Something closer to sorrow. Elias didn't press. A sudden rustle in the trees made them both turn. Elias had his rifle up in an instant. Zira's twin blades flashed into her hands. From the shadows, 3 figures emerged. Slim, insect-like aliens with curved talons and chitin armor that glistened in the moonlight. Their eyes glowed faint green and their movements were fast, deliberate. "Scouts," Elias murmured. Yira's stance lowered. "They are not Dominion or human." The lead alien hissed, raising a short spear. The attack came fast. Elias fired, 2 precise shots dropping one, but the other 2 closed in. Zira met the nearest with a clash of steel, her blades sparking as they cut through its weapon. She spun, striking low, the creature collapsing with a shriek. The last one lunged for Elias, but Zira moved first, slamming her shoulder into it and driving her blade between its armor plates. The forest went quiet again, save for the sound of the river. Elias lowered his rifle. "You saved me." Zira straightened, wiping her blade. "Consider the debt balanced." "Funny," he said. "I didn't think we were keeping score." "We are," she replied, sheathing her weapons. They dragged the bodies to the river bank, letting the current carry them away. When they returned to camp, Elias adjusted the perimeter sensors on his pack. "Who were they?" he asked. "Raviks," Zira said. "Hunters. They sell to whoever pays them most. So someone hired them to track us." Her golden eyes met his. "And they will send more." The rest of the night passed without another attack, but neither of them slept deeply. The air was tense, every sound in the forest a possible threat. At dawn, they set out again, heading west toward a range of low mountains. The path was rough, but the higher ground would give them a better view of any pursuit. As they climbed, Elias noticed Zira's limp worsening. "We need to stop and fix that leg." She shook her head. "We keep moving." He stopped, forcing her to face him. "You can't fight if you can't stand. You're not invincible." Her glare softened, just for a moment. "Neither are you." They found a small cave in the hillside, sheltered from view. Inside, Elias unpacked his medkit, again. This time, Zira didn't argue when he knelt beside her. As he worked, she studied his face, scarred, weathered, but steady. "Why did you save me, human?" she asked quietly. Elias met her gaze. "Because you were alive." That was reason enough. For a long moment she held his eyes. Then she looked away. "You are strange." He smiled faintly. "I get that a lot." Outside, the wind carried the sound of distant engines. Whoever was hunting them was getting closer. They had survived the night, but the real danger was still coming. The wind was sharper in the mountains, carrying the bite of snow from the higher peaks. From their vantage point on a rocky ledge, Elias could see the valley below, a winding path surrounded by jagged cliffs, perfect for an ambush. He lowered his binoculars. "Bad news. There's movement on the trail behind us." Zira stepped closer, her golden eyes narrowing. "How many?" "Too many for a casual walk," he said. "At least a dozen. Probably more." She scanned the ridgeline. "They will expect us to keep climbing, we will not." Elias gave her a wry look. "You have a plan?" "I always have a plan," she replied. "But I require a distraction." They descended into a narrow ravine where the walls rose high and the air smelled faintly of damp stone. Elias moved ahead, placing small motion-triggered charges along the path. "You know," he said, setting the last device. "Most people would just run." "I am not most people," Zira replied. "And neither are you." The first sound of pursuit came as faint clinks of armor against rock. Elias ducked behind a boulder, rifle ready. Zira was already perched higher up, blades drawn, her posture like a coiled predator. The first enemy stepped into view. A Ravik scout, its insectoid eyes sweeping the ravine. Elias let it pass the first charge. When the second scout followed, he triggered it. A sharp crack echoed as the explosion sent rock shards flying. 2 Raviks fell instantly. The others scrambled for cover, hissing. Zira leapt down from her perch, landing in their midst. Her blades flashed silver in the dim light, cutting through armor joints. Elias provided cover fire, each shot precise, pushing the enemy back toward the choke point, but more were coming, shadows filling the mouth of the ravine. "They're trying to box us in," Elias shouted. "Then we break the box," Zira replied. She dashed forward with impossible speed, her blades moving in fluid arcs. Elias followed, switching to close-quarters fire, the air filled with the hiss of Ravik voices and the sharp ring of steel on armor. One enemy lunged at Elias from the side, its talons grazing his arm before Zira's blade struck it down. "That's twice now," he said between breaths. She didn't answer, only met his eyes for a brief heartbeat before turning to cut down another attacker. The fight spilled toward the upper trail where the sunlight broke through the clouds. Blood, dark green from the Raviks, stained the rocks. The survivors pulled back, vanishing into the shadows they'd come from. Elias exhaled slowly, lowering his rifle. "They'll be back." Zira wiped her blades clean. "Then we move now, while they are bleeding." By midday, they reached a high plateau. From here, the mountains stretched endlessly in every direction, their peaks shrouded in mist. But on the far side of the plateau, Elias spotted something, a faint glimmer of metal, half buried in snow. They approached cautiously. It was a small crash site, a battered shuttle with its hull scorched black. "Abandoned?" Elias asked. "Not for long," Zira said. She pointed to the fresh tracks in the snow, 3-toed footprints leading toward the shuttle. They followed the trail to a shallow cave. Inside, the cold air was heavy with the smell of fuel and something else. Blood. 2 bodies lay near the back, alien smugglers judging by their gear. Whatever had killed them had been fast. Elias crouched, examining the wound patterns. Not Ravix. Too clean. Something with precision weapons. Zyra's gaze moved to the shadows near the entrance. We are not alone. A figure stepped forward, cloaked in white to blend with the snow. Its face was hidden, but the weapon it carried was sleek and lethal. You're trespassing, it said in a low, distorted voice. Elias raised his hand slightly. We're just passing through. The figure's gaze shifted to Zyra. Royal blood, it said. You're worth more alive than dead. That depends on who's paying, Zyra replied coldly. The figure tilted its head. The highest, bitter. Before it could move, Elias acted. He kicked over a crate, sending a burst of snow into the air, and dove for cover. Zyra used the moment to close the distance, her blades ringing against the figure's weapon. The fight was quick and brutal. Elias pinned the attacker's arm while Zyra struck with the blunt edge of her blade, knocking the weapon free. They stood over the fallen stranger. Bounty hunter, Elias said. And not the last, Zyra added. She looked at him for a long moment. You fight without hesitation, it for me. Elias shrugged. We're a team whether you like it or not. Her lips curved into something that might have been the ghost of a smile. Perhaps. Outside, the wind howled through the mountains. The enemy wasn't far, and both of them knew the path ahead would only get more dangerous. But for the first time, Zyra's steps fell in line with his, not apart from them. The wind carried them higher into the mountains, the snow crunching under each step. The bounty hunter they disarmed was left tied inside the cave, but Zyra knew it wouldn't keep him long. Every shadow in these peaks could be another threat. By the time the sun dipped behind the ridges, they reached a narrow pass that opened into a sheltered basin. In the middle, half buried in snow and stone, stood a small structure, its walls made of reinforced alloy, the edges worn but intact. Elias crouched low, scanning it through his scope. Not a natural formation. That's an outpost. Zyra's golden eyes narrowed. It is Dominion design, but older than my lifetime. It should not be here. They moved in cautiously, keeping to the rocks. The door was sealed with a layer of ice, but Elias used a plasma cutter from his kit to melt it enough to push through. Inside, the air was stale and metallic. Dim strips of emergency lighting ran along the ceiling, casting a pale glow over the dust-covered floor. Zyra's voice was quiet but firm. This was built before the war, a forward listening post. Elias ran his hand along a control panel, brushing off frost. Then maybe it still has records. Could tell us why people are trying to kill you. She gave him a sharp look. People have wanted to kill me my entire life, but this is different. They reached what had once been the command room. A central console sat dormant in the middle, surrounded by cracked holoscreens. Zyra powered it up using a small portable cell from her gear. The hum of ancient machinery filled the room, and a faint blue light flickered to life. Data began scrolling across the main screen. Logs of troop movements, intercepted communications, and encrypted files. Elias leaned in, scanning them. Then, one line made him freeze. Subject, Princess Zyra. Status, target of contingency Alpha. Elias read aloud. Eliminate or capture the princess if she attempts to block treaty compliance. Zyra's jaw tightened. This is from before the war with humans even began. That means this kill order isn't about the war, Elias said. It's political. She straightened, her expression unreadable. Someone in my own dominion signed this, a betrayal in my bloodline. A sudden metallic clang echoed from the entrance. Elias turned sharply. We've got company. Through the narrow hallway, shapes moved, armored figures in pale armor with red visors. Their weapons were sleek, military grade, and they advanced. Without hesitation, Zyra drew her twin blades, the metal catching the blue glow of the console. They are not Ravix. These are elite assassins. Elias slung his rifle forward. Then we hold here. The first wave came fast. Elias dropped, one with a headshot, another with a burst to the chest. Zyra darted through the gap, her movements a blur, cutting down two before they could fire. But there were more behind them. One assassin hurled a shock grenade into the room. Elias shoved Zyra down just as it detonated, the flash and crack rattling the walls. When the ringing in his ears faded, he realized they were surrounded. A voice came from behind the helmets. "Princess Zyra, come quietly, and the human will live." Zyra's grip on her blades tightened. "And if I refuse? Then we kill him first." Her golden eyes flicked to Elias. He met her gaze without flinching. "Don't you dare surrender. For me." The leader took a step closer. "Choose." For the first time, Zyra hesitated, not out of fear, but because the choice wasn't as simple as it should have been. Her pride told her to fight to the last breath, but her instincts told her that losing Elias now meant losing the one person who had no reason to help her, and yet had, again and again. She made her decision. With a sudden movement, she flung one of her blades into the leader's chest. The assassins turned in shock, and Elias opened fire, dropping two before they could react. Zyra grabbed his arm and yanked him toward the side corridor. They ran through the narrow passage, the sound of gunfire chasing them. At the far end, a hatch led outside onto a steep slope of snow and rock. "Jump!" Zyra shouted. Elias didn't argue. They leapt, sliding down the slope as blaster bolts sizzled overhead. Snow sprayed around them, the cold biting their skin. They didn't stop until they were deep in the forested valley below. Elias leaned against a tree, catching his breath. "You had a choice back there. You could have left me." Zyra met his gaze. "I told you before. I lead from the front. That means I protect those beside me, even if they are human." For a moment, the wind was the only sound between them. Elias gave her a faint smile. "Sounds like we're past keeping score." "Do not assume too much," she said, but there was no heat in her tone. Above them, the mountains loomed, hiding the outpost and the truth they'd uncovered. Whoever had ordered her death was still out there, and now they knew she wasn't alone. The forest canopy was thick, filtering the light into shifting patterns across the ground. Snow still clung to the higher branches, and each step crunched over frozen soil. Zyra led the way, her movements purposeful but tense. Elias followed, close, his rifle slung over his shoulder. "You've been quiet since we left the outpost," he said. "I am thinking," she replied without turning. "About the kill order?" Her golden eyes flicked back at him. "About the traitor who signed it. If we find them, we find the truth, and when I have the truth, I will have their head." Elias raised an eyebrow. "So what's our next move?" "We go to Saren's Reach," she said. "A border city under Dominion control. My cousin sits on the council there. If anyone knows who authorized that order, it will be him." The journey to Saren's Reach took 2 days. They avoided main roads, slipping through narrow passes and frozen valleys. Once, they spotted a pack scout drone skimming low over the snow, and Elias pulled Zyra into a crevice between the rocks until it passed. At night, they camped in caves or beneath the twisted roots of ancient trees. Zyra kept watch in long, silent stretches, but Elias could tell her thoughts were elsewhere. On the second night, as they sat beside a small fire, Elias broke the silence. "You're not sure you can trust your cousin?" She didn't look at him. "Trust is not given in my world, it is earned, and it can be broken. And if he's the one behind this, then I will end him." Elias studied her face in the firelight, pride carved into every line, but beneath it something harder to name. Saren's Reach appeared on the horizon as the sun set on the third day, a sprawl of stone towers and metal fortifications built into the side of a cliff. Its gates were wide enough for supply convoys guarded by soldiers in gleaming silver armor. Zyra pulled a dark cloak over her armor, hiding her face. Elias adjusted the strap on his rifle. "We're just walking in." "I am still a princess," she said. "That carries weight, even among those who wish me dead." The guards stiffened at the sight of her, quickly letting them pass. Inside, The city was alive with merchants, soldiers, and the smell of spiced meat cooking over open flames. The streets wound upward toward the council hall at the cliff's highest point. They entered the hall without challenge. Inside, the air was warm and scented with burning oils. The council chamber was a wide, circular room with tall windows overlooking the city. At the far end, seated in a high-backed chair, was Lord Kalen, Zyra's cousin. He was younger than she expected, his face clean-shaven, his dark hair bound in a warrior's braid. His golden eyes, like hers, narrowed as they met. "Zyra," Kalen said, his tone smooth. "I heard rumors you were dead." "They were exaggerated," she replied coldly. "We need to speak, privately." Kalen's gaze shifted to Elias, then back to her. "And the human? He stays," Zyra said. Kalen rose from his chair. "Very well, but speak quickly. The Dominion's patience is thin, and your return will raise questions." They stepped into a side chamber, the heavy door closing behind them. The room was smaller, with a fire crackling in the hearth. Zyra wasted no time. "We found a listening post in the mountains. Inside was a kill order with my name on it. It predates the war. Someone in the Dominion wants me gone." Kalen's expression didn't change. "And you think I would know who? You are on the council. You hear whispers. Others do not." He moved to pour himself a drink. "Whispers are dangerous, cousin. Sometimes safer to ignore them." Her voice sharpened. "You know something." Kalen's jaw tightened, just for a moment. "If I did, telling you would put us both at risk." Elias stepped forward. "She's already at risk. So am I. Whoever's behind this isn't going to stop until she's dead. You helping her now is the only thing that might change that." Kalen's gaze lingered on Elias before turning back to Zyra. "There is a name whispered among the council. Lord Vyric. He claims loyalty to the throne but has ties to the Pact. If he sees you as an obstacle, he will not hesitate." Zyra's grip on the back of a chair tightened. "Then I will go to him." Kalen shook his head. "You will not. His fortress is deep in Pact territory. You step into it, you will not step out." "That is my choice," she said. Kalen looked at her for a long moment. "If you are set on this, then take this." He handed her a small data crystal. "It contains routes through Pact space. They will get you close, but you will be hunted every step of the way." As they left the chamber, Elias leaned close. "So he's not the traitor?" "No," Zyra said, slipping the crystal into her cloak. "But he fears the one who is. That means the danger is greater than I thought." Elias gave her a half smile. "Good thing you've got me." Her lips curved faintly. "For now." Outside, the cold mountain wind cut through the streets. Ahead of them lay the path into enemy territory, and the man who wanted her dead. The path into Pact territory was carved through jagged valleys and abandoned mining tunnels. For 2 days, Zyra and Elias moved under the cover of darkness, guided by the roots stored on Kalen's data crystal. Snow gave way to dry, red soil as they descended from the mountains. The air grew warmer, but the tension between them never eased. Both knew that every step forward was deeper into enemy land. At dusk on the 3rd day, the fortress appeared, a looming black structure built into the side of a sheer cliff. Its towers rose like claws into the darkening sky, each one bristling with energy cannons. Elias studied it through his scope. "That thing's a death trap. One way in, one way out, and a dozen ways to die in between. Which is why we will not use the main gate," Zyra replied. They waited until nightfall before moving. The cliffs were steep, but narrow ledges and iron support beams provided a dangerous path along the outer wall. The wind howled, carrying the faint hum of the fortress's power systems. Halfway across, Elias spotted a patrol drone gliding along the wall. He pressed against the stone, pulling Zyra in with him. For a moment, they were close enough for him to hear the steady rhythm of her breathing. The drone passed. She stepped back without a word. At the far side of the fortress, a maintenance hatch sat flush with the wall. Zyra knelt, producing a slim tool from her belt. Keep watch. Elias covered the approach, scanning the shadows. The night was still, but his instinct screamed that they weren't alone. The hatch clicked open. Inside, the corridor was narrow, dimly lit by flickering strips along the floor. The air smelled faintly of oil and heated metal. They moved silently, passing through storage bays and winding service tunnels. Occasionally, Zira would pause, tilting her head as if hearing something only she could sense. "You've done this before," Elias whispered. "Too many times," she replied. Finally, they reached a tall, reinforced door marked with the crest of Lord Varric, a stylized serpent coiled around a blade. Zira touched the panel beside it. "This is his council chamber. Not exactly a friendly visit," Elias muttered. The door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the room was vast, its floor polished black stone that reflected the pale light of a massive window overlooking the cliff. At the far end, seated on a throne-like chair, was Lord Varric. He was tall and broad, his skin the pale gray of old stone, his golden eyes colder than Zira's. His armor was ceremonial, but the way he carried himself left no doubt. He was a warrior first, politician second. "Princess," Zira, he said, his voice deep and calm, "you've come a long way to die." Elias stepped forward, rifle in hand. "Funny, we were thinking the same thing about you." Varric's gaze flicked to him, then back to Zira. "You bring a human into my hall. Is this meant to insult me?" Zira's voice was steady. "This is Elias Cross. He is the reason I am alive, and the reason I am here to confront you." Varric rose slowly from his chair. "You think you can threaten me in my own fortress?" "I don't need to threaten you," she said. "I know about the kill order. I know you've been working with the pact." A faint smile touched Varric's lips. "And what will you do with that knowledge? Tell your council? Half of them would thank me for removing you." The chamber doors slammed shut behind them. From the side corridors, armored guards emerged, weapons raised. Elias tightened his grip on his rifle. "You walk us into a trap?" he asked under his breath. Zira's gaze didn't leave Varric. "No, he did." Varric gestured lazily. "Take them alive. The pact will want to see her kneel." The guards advanced. Zira moved first, her twin blades flashing in the dim light. Elias covered her with precise shots, each one dropping a guard before they could flank. The fight was tight and brutal. The chamber echoed with the clash of steel, the hiss of blaster fire, and the sharp breaths of combat. Varric didn't join the fight. He stood at the far end, watching. Elias noticed him moving toward a control panel. "Zira!" he shouted. She saw it too. With a sudden burst of speed, she cut down the last guard and closed the distance. But Varric pressed the panel. Before she could reach him, a section of the floor split open, revealing a deep drop into the cliffside. Wind roared through the chamber. "You wanted to face me, cousin," Varric said with a cold smile. "Then do so where the ground itself will betray you." Zira's golden eyes narrowed. "Gladly." Elias moved to her side, his rifle trained on Varric. "I'm not letting you do this alone." She didn't argue. For the first time, she nodded once. "Then we end him together." The wind howled between them as Varric drew a long, curved blade. The final fight was about to begin. The wind screamed through the open floor, carrying the scent of stone and cold air from the abyss below. Lord Varric stepped forward, his curved blade gleaming under the pale light spilling from the massive window. Zira's stance was low and ready, twin blades in hand. Elias moved to flank, his rifle steady. Varric's golden eyes were locked on his cousin. "You should have stayed in exile, Zira. You would have lived longer." "I would rather die on my feet than live in your shadow," she replied. He struck, first a blur of motion for a man his size. Zira caught the blade on one sword, deflecting the force while spinning to slash with the other. Varric blocked, the clash ringing through the chamber. Elias fired at his opening, but Varric moved with unnatural speed, twisting behind a pillar. The shot scorched the stone instead. "Keep him between us," Zira called. Elias shifted position, forcing Varric to move into her path. Steel met steel again, sparks flying. Varric's strength was undeniable. Every strike drove Zyra back a step, her boots skidding on the polished floor. With a roar, Varric pushed her toward the gaping hole in the floor. She caught herself just in time, the drop yawning below. Elias closed in, firing at Varric's side. The warlord batted the rifle away with his blade, but the distraction was enough. Zyra lunged, slicing a deep line across his armor. Varric staggered, but his smirk never faded. Not enough. He feinted, toward Zyra, then pivoted toward Elias, slamming him back against a pillar. The rifle clattered to the ground. Elias drew his sidearm and fired point blank, but Varric knocked the weapon aside and raised his blade for a killing blow. Before it could fall, Zyra tackled him, both of them sliding dangerously close to the edge. They fought in a blur, blade against blade, the clang echoing off the stone walls. Varric drove a knee into her side, knocking one sword from her grip. He raised his weapon high. "You will kneel, cousin, even if it is to your grave." Zyra's eyes blazed. "I kneel to no one." She twisted under his swing, grabbing his wrist and pulling him forward, straight into Elias's recovered rifle barrel. The shot hit Varric in the shoulder, spinning him off balance. Zyra swept his legs from under him, and he landed hard, his blade skittering away. Breathing hard, she stood over him, one sword poised at his throat. "Do it," Varric hissed. "Prove you're no better than me." For a moment, the only sound was the wind. Then Zyra lowered her blade. "You don't deserve my blade, cousin," she said coldly. "You deserve to live knowing you were beaten by the one you tried to, destroy." She turned her back on him. Varric snarled and lunged for the hidden dagger at his belt. Before he could strike, a single shot rang out, Elias's rifle. The warlord collapsed, the dagger clattering from his hand. His eyes were wide, more in shock than pain. "You were reaching for a weapon," Elias said flatly. Zyra looked at him for a long moment, then gave a single nod. He made his choice. They left the fortress before reinforcements could arrive, taking a hidden exit that led to the cliffs below. By the time they reached the open plains, dawn was breaking, the first light glinting off the snow-dusted peaks. Behind them, Elias glanced at her as they walked. "So, you swore you'd never kneel to a human." Her golden eyes met his. "I swore I'd never kneel to anyone." He smiled faintly. "And yet—" She stopped, standing in the rising sun. "You have fought beside me, bled beside me, and stood between me and death more than once. If I ever did kneel, human, it would not be in submission." There was something in her voice, respect, and something deeper that she wasn't ready to name. Elias smirked. "I'll take that as the closest thing to a compliment I'll ever get." Her lips curved into a faint smile. Perhaps. Behind them, Lord Varric's fortress was silent. Ahead, the horizon stretched wide and open, filled with unknown dangers. But for the first time, they walked together without doubt, two warriors from different worlds, bound by survival, trust, and a hard-won respect neither had expected, and, whatever waited for them next, neither would face it alone.